Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time it is where you are watching this. It's your boy T Shees, data scientist, social commentator, getter of the buckets. And what are we talking about today? We're talking about your man. Let me make sure my mic volume is good right here. Talking about your man, Scott Adams. Who is Scott Adams? He's the Dilbert guy. Maybe you don't read Dilbert. You're not maybe all that familiar with Dilbert, but you've probably seen the cartoon. You come across it here or there. I only know of the cartoon, mostly syndicated in like newspapers and things of that nature. Kind of like Office comedy and humor. But yeah, Scott Adams, kind of a wealthy guy. Got really wealthy off of the Dilbert comics. So he, in the last few years, has decided he wanted to become kind of a social commentator and kind of get his opinions out there in the ether. So he messed around about a week ago and got himself canceled. Okay, so the deal is that we are going to examine what it is that he said that got himself canceled, because many people are calling it racist. I'll just go ahead and tell you up front. I think what Scott Adams said was pretty stupid, but racist. I don't know. I don't know about the racist part. But stupidity is still pretty bad, and it deserves to be in its own category. I do think it's important that we put stupid things people say in the stupid box, and we put racist things people say in the racist box, because the term racism is so overused today that it's virtually become a meaningless term. Everything's racist, right? So it's kind of silly. What he said was stupid, not racist. But we're going to examine, I think, an angle about the Scott Adams comments that I think most people are not really addressing. Is that how did Scott Adams get here? What was the impetus? What were the things leading up to his ridiculous and silly comments about white people needing to get away from black people, as you'll hear as we'll listen to in a moment. But this is just dumb stuff that Scott Adams said. And what I want to talk about is the fact that we are going to be creating more and more Scott Adams types, more Dilberts or Dillweeds or whatever you want to call it. And it's a bad thing. We need to turn it around. We need to understand how this is happening, and we need to learn how to combat it. So what I want to do is I want to take us through the content that that kind of got Scott Adams all messed up. Go back through and listen to his comments, kind of in the context of a show that Charlemagne the God, I hate that term, but anyway, Charlemagne did, where he gave Scott Adams Donkey of the Day. We'll kind of listen to some of his comments to give you an idea of the kind of the silly kind of way we go on about saying things are racist and making it about things that don't have anything to do with what's actually happening. And hopefully we'll get to the bottom of all this and understand that if we don't turn this thing around, we're going to create a bunch of stupid people like Scott Adams. So the first thing we'll do is we will go ahead and look at Charlemagne the God. I might as well call him Charlemagne the Fraud, and we'll kind of go from there.
Need this up. Let's go to CBS News for the report, please.
Newspapers across the country have pulled the long-running Dilbert comic strip after a racist rant from cartoonist Scott Adams. In a video posted to YouTube this week, Adams called black Americans members of a, quote, hate group, saying white people should stay away from them. Adams has written Dilbert for 3 decades.
Would you like to hear the racist rant?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's listen to it. Let's go.
This is the first political poll that ever changed my activities. I don't know that that's ever happened before. But as of today, I'm going to re-identify as white because I don't want to be a member of a hate group. I'd accidentally joined a hate group. So if nearly half of all blacks are not okay with white people, according to this poll, not according to me, according to this poll, that's a hate group. That's a hate group. And I don't want to have anything to do with them. And I would say, based on the current way things are going, the best advice I would give to white people is to get the hell away from black people. Just get the away. Wherever you have to go, just get away. Because there's no fixing this.
All right. So you heard the ridiculous comments of one, Scott Adams. He's advocating for racial segregation because he's basically saying, abandoning all hope of, having reasonable interactions with black people. If you're white, just get away from them. Okay, first of all, let me just say this. Whatever this supposed survey is that he, getting his results from, seems to me kind of sus. Seems to me kind of sus, bro. It probably had something to do with how the question was asked. I mean, they're asking black people, is it okay for white people to be white? I mean, what else would they be? It's like asking tall people, is it okay to be tall? I mean, what else can you be? If you're white, you're white, right? So let me just put that out there. The survey itself seems kind of suspect. But anyway, sometimes you can, ask questions in a way that are kind of leading and weird. But Scott Adams' reaction is, if we take him at his word and we say, okay, he's reacting to supposedly a survey that says black people, more than half of all black people say it's not okay for white people to be white. Now, the question is, this is kind of a chicken or the egg question. What came first, right? His attitudes? Does he feel a certain way about black people because he just doesn't like black people, or is he reacting to information he's getting? It doesn't matter. I mean, his reaction is stupid and silly, and it doesn't. But the question is it racism? But this is a kind of an extremism that we see from Scott Adams, right? This sort of extreme attitude. And the thing that I want to focus on is how do we get here, right? What was the impetus of creating this sort of silliness, right? And so I want to introduce you to a concept called the bell curve. Maybe you've heard of it. If you've ever taken a statistics class, you might be familiar with the bell curve. And so I want to explain to you how we are creating people like Scott Adams. So here we have a bell curve in front of you. And the bell curve is basically a statistical model, right? Somebody discovered that if you take a bunch of samples of a population, right, and on a myriad of things, like it could be attitudes about money, it could be people's height, people's weight, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of different things that this bell curve kind of accurately models and represents. And the idea is that right in the center mass in this dark blue shaded area, you're going to have like 68% of all your information, right? All of the information in these samples are going to be covered in the center of the mass, right? And right in the middle, that little white line in the middle of the dark shaded area is the average, right? And what that means is right in the center, most of the people are going to hover around the average. But as you move toward the thin ends of the bell curve, you're going to get more and more extreme values. So let's just say, for example, this bell curve, let's say it was a model of the height of human beings people in the United States, right? I don't know what the average height is. Let's just say it's like 5'8" or something like that, if you include both men and women, right? Let's just say it's 5'8". So that means right there in the center would represent 5.8, and 68% of people would be what they call one standard deviation away from 5'8", right? And to give you an idea of what a standard deviation is kind of an average. Like, say, if the average is 5'8", and then you took, say, somebody's height and you subtracted it from the average, it'd be, and take the difference, and you did that for everyone in the population, it would kind of be the average of the difference, right? So basically, how much does, on average, each person's individual height differ from the average? So it's kind of an average of the averages, kind of like that. So one standard deviation 1 standard deviation from the average is going to be 60% of all the information. 2 standard deviations from the average is going to be something like 95% of all the information. So this is very, very helpful statistical. This is a very helpful statistical model, and it literally accurately models like millions of things, right? So this is a great breakthrough with respect to statistical sampling and modeling and predicting averages and stuff like that. So why does this matter? Because I think that this bell curve would actually be an accurate model of people's racial attitudes, right? And I would say right in the middle, particularly in the United States, right in the center is where you would say where most people would be neutral on racial issues, which is to say, for the most part, colorblind, in as much as you can be in as a human being, because everyone has a little bit of bias here and there, right? But on average, if you say right in the center, most people are not racist. Most people are racially neutral. Most people have much bigger fish to fry. They're just trying to put food on the table. They're trying to go about their day. You know, they got race and racial ideology is far from their minds, okay? That's the majority of people. And then you get like 68% of the people right in that very, 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 very close to that center. And most people are going to be far from the extremes. But here's where it gets interesting, right? If we go to one end of the extreme, let's just say for the right, and I'm not saying right and left in a political sense. I'm just saying directionally, let's just say we go to the right. We go to the right extreme, right to the very thin edges of that bell curve where it's at like say 2.1% and on. And that represents people who are actually racist, you know, traditional racism, like real racism, like we had back in the day, where people were being hated on the basis of their skin color. You have your standard issue Klansmen, your Nazi Germany, people wanting to exterminate the Jews, the Juden, as the Germans used to say. So this is like real racist people who have real racial animus. But then what would you get if you go on the other side? This is where this analogy gets really spicy and interesting, you see, because I believe there is a mirror image in today's society. There is an equivalent, a new sort of racial extremism that doesn't have nearly the stigma, but is every bit as wicked and dangerous. And that is the modern progressive, the modern racial, the stirrer of racial strife that we see, where we get to the people who promote extreme critical race theory and things where we talk about race-based viewpoint epistemology and all of these things where people are literally saying, well, if you're black, then you should be somehow you have some special victim status, or and to give you an interesting example of this is somebody named Ibram X. Kendi. Now, Ibram X. Kendi became popular not too long ago with his book called Anti-Racism. And literally, people don't even believe this. If you've never heard it before, it may be hard to take in, but this is literally true. Ibram X. Kendi believes that the way to combat past racial discrimination is to have present racial discrimination. That's not a joke. It's not a joke. And to quote Joe Biden, it's not a joke. Not a joke. I'm serious. No, it's not a joke. It's not a joke. He literally believes that anti-racism is basically racial policies and preferences to combat racial disparities. So it effectively, trust me when I say, effectively, it's state-sanctioned racism. He doesn't frame it that way, but he freely admits that he is not advocating for race-neutral policies. He's not advocating for race-neutral ideology, which is what the Civil Rights Act was supposed to establish, basically equal protection under the law, where everyone was treated in a way that was indiscriminate and without respect to their race. Ibram Kendi says that's not good enough. We can't just be not racist. We have to be anti-racist. So his idea, quite literally, is that if you're not anti-racist, you're racist. Okay? This is where the extremism comes in. It'd be one thing if that stupid ideology was just like you're saying, yeah, I think maybe this is just, this could be one way to go about it. But if you differ, that's fine. No, his idea is that if you are not an advocate of anti-racism, so-called, which is just basically state-sanctioned racism, right? But in the reverse. When I say in the reverse, that means instead of being racist against non-white people, it's racist against people who are white and favoring my so-called minority groups. That's basically racism in his mind. So he's effectively equating you, if you're in the center mass of this bell curve, he's saying, if you're not all the way on the left side, like me, then you might as well be all the way on the right side, like the Klansmen. You might say that's hyperbole. And no, I think he believes that in not necessarily in, he's saying that you have the same racial animus as that, but he's saying so long as you permit for racial disparities to continue, you might as well be. Right? You see, this sort of deception and extremism is causing a lot of strife and basically a lot of confusion in the culture. And then you have other people who pile on, somebody like Nicole Hannah-Jones, who came out with the 1619 Project. And the 1619 Project was basically a bunch of historical lies that she got busted for, and they knew. It's just so crazy. She was actually corrected by a black female historian that told her that the stuff she was putting out in the 1619 Project was historically incorrect, right? Well, basically, she's saying that, hey, the nation of the United States was founded. Its founding should be thought of as the year 1619, when the first slaves came upon the shores of the United States, versus 1776, our actual founding. She says no, because everything about the United States and its founding has been about racial oppression and the subjugation of black people, which is completely 100% incorrect. And when she was called out about the fact that she had a bunch of historical inaccuracies, she was just like, oh, well, it's not necessarily about the history, I'm paraphrasing, obviously. It's not about the history, it's about the narrative, right? Over the narrative is correct, even if the facts are wrong. So this is the sort of idiocy, this is what I'm saying. They are the modern day extreme. They're the other side of the racial paradigm. Every bit as extreme, every bit as destructive. So this is where it's important to understand, which is to tie this back to how Scott Adams became Scott Adams, right? How did he say these ridiculous and stupid things? And how did he feel like he got to the point where he's so exacerbated, he's just like, I don't want to have anything to do with black people. You see, the people on the left side of that extremism, they think that their tactics will work in the sense that if they pull those people in the center mass to the left where they are, then they will accomplish their political and ideological ends. The problem is, though, what they're effectively doing is just pressing down on the top of that center mass. And just think about it, like if you had a big, something like if you had like a bag full of water or full of gel or something, and it was, kind of shaped like a bell, and you press down on the top of it, what would happen? All the stuff on the inside would push toward the ends. It would push to the extremes. And that's exactly what they're doing. And the problem is, while they're trying to pull people to the left with them, they're actually creating as many extremists on the other side as they are on their side. And so quite literally, their goal and their objective is to push people to the extremes. That's effectively what they're doing. The problem is, it's just like a box of chocolates, just like Forrest Gump said, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. When you try to radicalize and make people more extreme, you never know which direction they're going. But what we do know is happening for sure is that there are fewer and fewer people who are centered around that middle line, where you see things neutrally and not in racial terms. And this, in fact, is their objective. And there's a certain amount of white people who this sort of attack and ideology works on because they say, well, I don't want to be a racist. How can I escape the label of being the leper in the modern leper in society, the racist, the kind of the I don't know what that racial, I don't know what that caste is in India, where the people who are the untouchable. I don't know what it is, but anyway, basically, the worst thing you can be apparently in today's society, if you're a white person, is a racist. It's worse than being a pedophile, worse than being a murderer. Racism is right at the bottom of that totem pole. So they're like, well, how can I escape? Kind of like going to, people say to Jesus, what must I do to be saved? Or say to Paul, what must I do to be saved? You got white people going to Nicole Hannah-Jones and Ibram X. Kendi saying, what must I do to not be racist? And so they get pulled in that direction to the extreme. But then there's the Scott Adams of the world who says, this is pure idiocy. But he doesn't have the moral framework and the worldview to resist the resentment that's building up in his heart when people who are telling him, who has been in the center probably for most of his life, that's not good enough. You're still a racist. You're complicit. You are the reason why there is racial inequality in this world, and you need to stop being complicit in divest of your whiteness and blah, 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 blah. Some people, I'm telling you, they don't receive that well. And that's how you create a Scott Adams, by pushing the people from the center to the extremes. And they want to create a flat bell curve, a bell curve that's not really, it's basically inverted, where all the mass, instead of being the mass all being in the center, all the mass is in the edges to the extremes. And if we don't stop these frauds and these people, this is where we're headed. This is it's quite disheartening if you think about it. But I want to give you kind of a little bit of I want to go back to Charlemagne a bit, because he says something, and this is how black people, I think, get manipulated. And people in general get manipulated into thinking that, because Charlemagne, he starts to make this whole thing about something that is completely, it's not, right? He starts to invoke ideas that are just not really the issue. If you listen to what Scott Adams is saying, he's saying, I'm getting information that black people don't think white people are okay, so I'm not cool with that. Now, watch what he makes it about. Let's see here.
You're late.
I'm gonna try that. When I get pulled over next time, I'm gonna be like,
I'm a white
Actually,
man.
I'm white.
Old and senile, so
Yeah,
I
he's
really don't.
next.
I'm not even taking it seriously at all.
I think we should take it serious. I think we should take it serious. The only reason I think we should take it serious is when I hear white people like Scott Adams talk like this, it makes me feel like he has no concept of history whatsoever, like no knowledge of white racial supremacy and colonization. Because, Scott, I don't know if you know, but black people have way more reasons to fear white people than white people have to fear us.
Facts.
Right.
Okay, the only thing white people could possibly be afraid of in regards to black people is black people one day having the type of power and privilege they have and doing to them what they have done to countless marginalized groups for centuries. So,
Right.
Scott Adams isn't just calling for segregation, he's calling for separation.
Yeah.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad would agree. Okay, but once again, and this is just historical fact, white people have caused more hell on this planet for everybody than anybody. Right?
Facts.
And
Facts. White people have caused more hell on this planet for everyone than anyone. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I'm not even going to go into the ahistoric nature of that idiotic claim. But let's just grant, for the sake of argument, that it was true. Let's assume that it was actually white people who's caused more harm than anybody on the planet. Is that really the way we want to reason about this? Are we really? Do we really want to go there? Where we're going to start ascribing to racial groups things that some people in the racial groups did, he said something that is so absurd that it bears a little correction. Because he said, white people or black people have way more reason to fear white people than the opposite. Not if you look at crime data. If you look at today, if you look at who are the victims of crimes from other races. Now, it is true that most violent crimes happen within races, intra-race, right? White people tend to assault white people, black people tend to assault black people, so on and so forth. But when there is some sort of murder or assault or something to that effect across racial lines, most of the time it's black people assaulting other races. That's a statistical fact. When we look at all the murder and we look at all the murder rate of within the black community is something like 8 times higher than whites and Latinos combined. So my point is, do we really want to start ascribing negative attributes to people in a certain group based on what some of the people in that group have done and are doing? I don't think we want to go down that road. It's completely idiotic. And it's the sort of thing that I think the people like Scott Adams are getting sick and tired of. People like Charlemagne the Fraud saying these ignorant and racist things, ascribing all sorts of negative attributes to white people that they don't deserve, not from a whatever supposed white people did doesn't white people, quote unquote, that doesn't have anything to do with any individual white person. And no white person deserves to be demonized on the basis of what somebody else that resembles them has done. I mean, isn't this like, it's so absurd that I'm even having to explain this. It causes my mind to boggle because it's like, this is ethics 101. This is the first thing we learn, like the golden rule. You don't even have to be a Christian to understand the golden rule. It's like, do unto others as you have others do unto you. Don't do things to people that you wouldn't want them to do to you. This is basic. But Charlemagne doesn't recognize his privilege because he can say stupid and ignorant things like that, and there are no consequences. There ain't a nickel's worth of difference between what Charlemagne just said about white people and what Scott Adams said about black people, but only one of them is facing backlash. Let's move on from Charlemagne the Fraud because he's getting me mad. I want to bring up something here that I find really interesting. I want to see if I can. I'm going to have to find the specific place, but the Babylon Bee did something that was pretty hilarious, but also chock full of truth, as only the Babylon Bee can do. And I'm going to find this starting place. This is it's called the Racist Club Trilogy. I invite you to look it up if you will, but I'm going to fast forward to this specific spot here because this is brilliant. Because this is the sort of thing I'm talking about. This is how you create extremists, by making the people who are normal seem like they're out of order. Let's watch this together.
We need to teach our children about the history of racism. We've come a long way since my day, though there's still work to be done. But we must be careful and thoughtful. Any ideas?
Let's circle back later.
We got some ideas.
Now wait just 1 minute. Who let these Klan members in?
Follow my lead, young Glenn. Well, hold on right now. Yourself. You want to teach kids about the history of racism? Can you think of someone more well-versed on the topic than, the two of us?
Well, let's hear what he has to say.
I don't like it, but perhaps you would have some valuable insight.
Fantastic. Okay, so, y'all know the biggies. We got slavery, we got more slavery, we got the MLK, now we got the white privilege, but...
But get this. Did you know that the history of racism doesn't need to be historical?
What now?
Beg your pardon.
History schmistery. In today's landscape, you don't have to be historically accurate. You just need to be on the right side of it. And then you can make stuff up.
What in Nantucket are you doing, boss?
So you mean I could teach my students that even though Abraham Lincoln helped free the slaves, he's, I don't know, still a racist?
Of course you can't teach them that. Yeah, he ain't one up.
Of course, you can teach them that because Lincoln was white, benefited from white privilege, and is therefore racist. You got it.
You cannot, under any circumstance, teach a child of any race that simply being white makes you a racist.
Yeah. Teaching that would be borderline abusive to these here children.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I agree with this Klansman.
Okay, Mr. Caveman. These guys think teaching kids about racism is abuse. A couple of nuts over here. It's good that we're making stuff up. What else you got?
We could teach kids that the only slaves in the history of the world were black. There's never been slaves of another color, something like that.
Black people are the only true slaves? I certainly won't argue with that. What if our curriculum taught that the civil rights movement was a sham?
Preposterous!
Shush. Let's hear him out. Because the civil rights movement wanted us to believe that white people and black people are equal.
We are!
We most certainly are not because of white privilege. Sure.
What if we taught kids that Obama doesn't count as the first black president because of his mixed race?
Who's got two thumbs and loves denying someone their identity for arbitrary reasons? This guy.
We could teach kids that the Black Lives Matter organization is justified in everything they do, including violence.
That's the right idea, but it's been done.
Okay, then how about BLM should, use violence to take back land and segregate themselves from the evil white man so they never have to deal with white people ever again?
I like half of that idea.
That is it!
Did you hear what they just said? Let's run that back.
The evil white man so they never have to deal with white people ever again.
I like
to take back land and segregate themselves from the evil white man so they never have to deal with white people ever again.
I like half.
Now, I just want to note that this racist club trilogy was done months ago. This was done way before Scott Adams ever did. And this is the interesting thing is that parody tends to be prophetic, right? The parody is the new prophecy right now because basically when they do some parody of some idiotic leftist idea, it inevitably is manifest in something that the leftists actually do. And I just find it completely, I find it hilarious that this is kind of the trajectory that we're going on. But I think we get the point, right? Basically, that is this whole. We need to separate from white people, and we need to justify violence against white people and all of this stuff because of whatever racial history or what have you. These are all, even though they are saying them tongue in cheek, these are all sentiments and ideas that has been explicitly advocated by the left, by these racial extremists. And the point that I'm making is that this is how you create the Scott Adams of the world. This is how you create them. There is no question that the more we use these extreme tactics to try to divide people, inevitably, the objective, I think, is not necessarily to divide people. I don't think that's what the left is trying to do. What they're trying to do is recruit people to their brand of racial extremism. But the point is that it either produces the effect that they intended or it produces the opposite effect. But there has to be, I think, a large group of people in the center who refuse to be moved. And that's where you and I come in. We cannot let these people win. And I, for one, am tired of sitting on my hands and letting them spew this nonsense. So I hope you would join me, friends, in this fight. What do you think about what I'm saying here? Am I off my rocker? You think what I'm saying is silly? If you do, just let me know. I'll be happy to talk about it. Don't forget, if you like this comment, please like, share, subscribe. Tell somebody about the channel. And I really want to hear comments from you. Write something in the comment section here. And as always, I look forward to hearing from you, friends. Till next time, God bless you.